Hey, what up, Brevard? It's our fourth installment, and I'm really excited about today's show. We've got one of my favorite people in Brevard County joining me today, and it was his idea, which I'm really stoked about. And welcome to the show, Bruce Jacobus.
Thank you so much. Great to be here today.
I am stoked. When we bumped into each other the other day at the Red Leopard, I just was like astounded that you volunteered to do this show. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was. I was caught off guard seeing you there. It's always that uncomfortable moment. I don't think we were there.
Yeah, just for the record, that's not where we met. I was just trying to see. I was like, you know what? Let me just see if I can throw them off a little bit. Is that like a technique attorneys use when they?
100%.
Is it really?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not like unethical to like, hey, let's see if we can throw Jacobus off his game.
No, normally they don't do it to the lawyer, but to witnesses.
Oh, yeah.
Very common to see someone try to get under someone's skin right out of the gates because people become
emotional.
They backpedal and they don't answer and think before they answer, and so yeah, it happens a lot. I don't do that typically, but it does happen.
Fielding?
All the time. All the time. That's my law partner.
We'll get to that here in a little bit. But we talked a little bit before, and you and I have known each other forever, so long that we don't even really know how we know each other.
That is the truth, and it's weird because we have a little bit of an age gap.
Sure.
I spent time, as we talked about, playing sports with your brother.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew about you and knew your prowess on the courts as well. Around town, you just hear things, but we ran in kind of similar circles, families we knew, and so it was like we've always known each other in a way.
Yeah. So we'll get into that, like the community, the town,
sure.
and talk about just Brevard County in general. And
right.
Yeah, I know it means a lot to you as well as it does me. But so we'll get to all of that in today's installment of What Up Brevard. What a great topic for What Up Brevard.
Right on, right?
How do you like this logo, this whole thing? You digging it?
I love the whole concept, man.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's cool, and you can, it's obviously probably a little unique to have a lawyer who's not necessarily tied into the real estate world or business, but I know it's not limited to that. It's just really just a cool setting, cool opportunity.
I don't want it to be real estate. I think real estate, it's like, we can have real estate elements, and I think that's helpful sometimes for some people, especially with the market the way it is. It's, pretty turbulent and changing so fast, but it's really more about the community and different things that are happening in the community. And so I really appreciate you being here today.
Happy to.
Yeah. So anyway, we were talking earlier, and so I wanted to do that off camera, but it was interesting. So I want to ask you again about how your family came to be in Brevard County.
Yeah. So my grandfather came down here with basically searching for a job in an engineering area. And came down and worked down here in Brevard, came down from up in Vermont, actually. My dad came down. They moved down here, and I'm going to mess this up. I think it was in the 40s.
Wow.
And my dad actually went to Melbourne High School, graduated from Melbourne High School, went to University of Florida, and then ultimately got a degree in engineering and came to work at Harris back in Melbourne. So he worked for Harris for a couple of years. And Harris, during that time, was during the Vietnam War, and they were actually doing communications work with, I think, Lockheed Martin. They were over in Germany. And so I was born in Germany, oddly enough, and lived there for 6 months. I was born on an Army base. And then my dad came back, decided to go to law school, and then relocated us back to Brevard County when I was like 1.5 or 2 years old.
So you've been here forever. Family goes way back.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because to think about Melbourne in the 40s, I don't even know that I can wrap my head around it.
It was, there's such a small group of people. It's like all the dots connect back then because it wasn't a big town, right?
No.
So and it's slowly we're growing, but we still seem to kind of have that mesh that holds everyone kind of together in a kind of a unique way. But my dad was in school with the Goods, with Bill Nelson. There was a whole crew of people.
I went to school with Bill Nelson Jr.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Who would have known that? I honestly didn't know there was a Bill Nelson Jr.
Yeah.
I should have known that probably. I apologize. But,
So when your dad went to Mel High, was he at the old Mel High and like downtown, like at the Henniger Center?
Correct. And that he was there. His class was, I think this is right. He was the first class to actually graduate from the new school.
Oh, okay.
So they started out in the old school and then moved to the new school. And he graduated from there ultimately, from the new school.
That is interesting. So, and it's funny, that's how my family found Melbourne as well. Is my mother was a a flight attendant. She would say stewardess back then, but she's a flight attendant in the 60s for Eastern Airlines.
Wow.
My dad worked for Eastern Airlines.
Okay.
And I was born in Boston, and he was being transferred, and he had his choice of Nashville, Daytona, or Melbourne. And my mom said, I used to fly into Melbourne. That was such a nice little town. We should check it out. And we've been here since 1983 because of that.
So you could have been a country music star or a race car driver, but instead we're here in Melbourne.
Yeah, instead of a degenerate hanging out at the Red Leopard with my friend Bruce.
No, that's just interesting. And you know what I think is, and I don't know that how it's gonna play out, but it seems like so many people came here for work back in that era, the space boom and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And right now it's like a second, metamorphosis with all the defense contractors, Grumman moving all the people here from other states. It's almost like it's happening all over again.
I've heard people referring to this area as like the next Silicon Valley. And if you think about it, it's plausible, right? Because technology, the next iteration of technology is in space. And where are you going to live? You're going to be right here.
100%.
So I could see that happening. I hope it doesn't.
Well, I know, and that's the struggle.
Right?
It's we love the charm of it. The old town feel, but that competes against what the growth basically. And I heard there's going to be a Hard Rock too. I don't know if that's good or not. That's just a rumor, but
I hope it's not a gambling Hard Rock.
Well,
because that's going to affect a lot of people I know.
That's we may know some of the same people that it could affect. We won't say any names here today, but but I mean that's the kind of growth that I'm not looking forward to that happens. But certainly the influx of Vieira. I mean who would have dreamed when it was a cow pasture, literally. There was nothing out there.
Right.
And, and they had the vision to, it had been done down in Fort Lauderdale and other places to be west of 95 was like unheard of back in the day. And now they're selling, $2 million houses out there.
The price per square foot equals beachside.
It's incredible.
It is.
Someone told me, and I don't know if this is true, but someone told me that a lot of the people that are moving in town from out of town do not want to see the beachside because they are so deathly afraid of hurricanes. Like they fear them and they want to be on the mainland.
It's funny. My mom was the same way. That's why I grew up in West Melbourne. She did not want to be anywhere near the beach. She wanted to be out. And that was back then was as far out west as you could get.
Yeah. That is I mean, it's just incredible to me because you think, we just always think waterfront, oceanfront.
Yeah, but if you think about it, people up north, they're like, we're going to go to the beach this weekend. We're going to drive 3 hours to get there. And they're like, I can live a half hour from the beach.
Yeah.
Like if I want to enjoy the beach, it's right there. They don't have to be on it.
I am so guilty. I live probably a half mile from the beach. I'm, right on the riverside in Indian Harbor Beach. And, I never go to it's right there. And I literally I guilt myself to death.
It's crazy because I usually go to the beach when I'm showing a condo on the beach.
Yeah.
That's my beach side. You know what I mean? Like I'm the same way. I'm more of a pool guy than I am a beach guy.
Yeah, me too. We used to, but I grew up, we were on the beach every weekend.
Oh,
literally. I did my time there, but I don't have that pull for some reason. I don't know if it's the sand. I hate the sand or
maybe the parking. It's getting crazy.
That's true too. That's true.
I mean, and like this time of year, we're shooting this, end of February, early March.
Right.
This is the time where A1A is packed on the weekends now that the weather it's beach weather.
I literally went to Bizzarro Pizza yesterday to get a slice for lunch.
Madhouse.
Could not park. I mean, all of Nance Park parking was full. Everything was full. It was incredible. I'm like, they're here, man. It's time. It's that time of year
for sure.
Spring break.
This is my favorite time in Brevard County, though. We didn't really have much of a winter this year,
right?
But when it starts getting more beach weather, I love this. Spring training's here. Like you get to go see baseball games. The weather's changing. It's just it's such a vibe. Even when I didn't live here, I felt almost like a sea turtle, like this draw to come back to Melbourne. It was like, it's weird. It's a feeling.
I have I have really fond memories of going down to Dodger Town with my dad. I mean, he would take me down there. We were Red Sox fans because he was up that way.
Same way.
And, but they were in Winter Haven back then. So I would go over there occasionally, but most of the time it was either Melbourne, here, or we'd head down to Vieira to see the Dodgers play. So
when, we were in Boston, Andover.
Yeah.
And, we had a Disney vacation and we went to Winter Haven. We got pictures. I'm a baby. I don't remember it. Kevin's got it, but he's got like pictures with Dennis Eckersley, Jim Rice, Dwight Evans.
Those were my boys. Those were my favorite
I know,
guys.
right?
Jim Rice was my favorite player, man.
That was why I wore number 14 in high school. Because of Jim Rice.
Wow.
I love Jim Rice.
I used to Boomer, Bob Scott. I used to frickin' I don't know if you,
He's a little before my time, but I know who he is.
I was in Dodgertown screaming his Boomer. He came over and gave me an autograph. I mean, it was just
how cool was Dodgertown? I loved that whole atmosphere in Dodgertown. Was special.
Incredible, man.
It was like the spring training Wrigley.
It was. I mean, there orange groves, the hill up there you could sit on. It was so low key, but they were so LA. It was just so the Dodgers, man. It was like incredible to see them in Vero. I mean, just unheard of.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we'll transition out of this a little bit. Now let's talk a little bit about you. So you graduate Melbourne High School.
I did.
You go to the University of Florida. And I wanted to ask you, because I know you're a huge University of Florida Gator, like big time. What's it like for your children to spurn Gainesville and go to Tallahassee?
Disappointing, I'll say that. And we have one right now, as a matter of fact, that is trying to get into FSU right now, that was turned down by Florida. And
throw that back at me. I like
the discussion, and I didn't even mean it that way. Because listen, FSU is incredibly difficult. They're all difficult to
They
get
all
into.
are now, yeah.
And he's got on paper he's our best, our youngest, and he is deferred at Florida State and got turned down by Florida. And I'm telling him, look, it's not a big deal. Florida, we love Tallahassee. We have a daughter there. It's beautiful. He really said to me, Dad, we've flown around the country following the Florida Gators. We've cried at their defeats.
Right.
We've cheered for their victories. And now you want me just to flip a switch and go to the arch rival.
I can totally relate.
And I didn't have an answer for that, except for you're not going to, if you get into FSU, you're going to go to FSU. That's all I could say. And he'll be happy there. I know he will be.
He will be. Yeah. And you enjoy going up there. It's fun.
I think they have done an incredible job with the new college town area that they've developed there.
Yeah.
It truly, while being compact and having the numbers that most college towns have, Gainesville included, the planning and the way they zoned it, it feels safe. They've done a great job. That school has developed themselves incredibly well, I would say.
Well, that was just a little big. I didn't want to get into that. But all right, so you go to the University of Florida, you go to law school at
Nova Southeastern, graduate law school, come back here with my wife. We both are working at the state attorney's office for a period of time. I had interned during the summertime with a local firm that did commercial litigation. Really good firm, and the senior partner there one of the senior partners there wanted me to take over his commercial litigation or work with him in commercial litigation. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be an injury lawyer, oddly, because my dad had done that. I grew up around it. I knew what it was. So I left. After 6 months, I left my first job, went to work for another firm for a year. Great guy, very good lawyer, learned a lot. And then when I went to get my bonus, this is a true story, I had told Tracy, my wife, I'm going to get this big bonus because I've done this much. I had all the numbers. And I got my bonus, and I was very polite about it. But I said, to my wife that day, I said, we can starve on our own and build a business, or I can starve sitting here. We can, pick either one. So I said, I'm planning on leaving. And she thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
We had one child. She was pregnant with another. Her income was a prosecutor's income. So it's not a ton of money, a young prosecutor. And I called my current law partner. So we've been together 25 years now, I guess, or 26. And that day I said, I'm leaving, and he's like, I just got a job. He had just gotten hired with a private firm. And I said,
in town?
In town. Okay. I said, and he just got health insurance with them. And he just, he's like, and his wife, he just had a child. And he's like, I said, it's now or never, man. We're going to either do this or we're not. What better time when we have no real, we're young and we can go back to work for someone else if it doesn't work.
Now, when did you first meet John?
God, fourth grade.
Wow.
Yeah, Gemini Elementary School.
Wow.
In fourth grade.
Yeah.
And he moved into town with some other guys that were still really great friends, moved oddly in fourth grade. Bert Gammon, Robbie Gammon came down at that time.
I met him not too long ago.
Bert's
for the first time. I knew of him, but I never met him.
So John and I met, and we didn't like each other very much at all.
That's how it works a lot of times.
All the girls loved John. He was, he's a cut up and funny and cute. And I was like, why do they like this guy? Whatever. So until we were like probably sophomores in high school, we knew each other, but in sophomores in high school, we really became good friends.
Okay.
And then went off to college separately. He went over to the West Coast of Florida and then went to UCF ultimately. I was at Florida. And then we talked about it, wanting to both go to law school. And we both ended up going to law school. We said we'd love to practice together someday. And that, knock on wood, it actually worked out. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you. All right. So, and that was like my next question was like, okay, so you come out of law school, like what's the plan and how close to that plan did you get? So like now that you've connected with John, you decided to go out on your own.
I bought a fax machine, Terry. That's all I could. Everyone that when
you still use it?
When I tell the story, for some reason in my brain, when I talked to John that day and I talked to my wife, I said, I'm going to Office Depot or wherever it was. I need to buy a fax machine. And they're like, why do you need it? And I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of how we sent letters and communicated with insurance companies.
Right.
And we left and we had one client, literally one client when we started our office. There are some funny stories, man, about us starting our office. We built it out. We were down on Strawbridge, renting a spot on Strawbridge, the old High Stack building, Bud Stack's building.
Okay.
And it was just, we had our family trying to fill in. John's wife, Megan, was our receptionist. Mm-hmm. And the phone didn't ring much, right? Because we didn't have any business back then. But the phone's ringing. Like the second day she's working there, the phone's ringing. It's ringing. And I'm like, I hear her yell, can somebody answer the phone? Because she was talking to my wife. She was talking to Tracy, literally. And she's supposed to be our receptionist. So I'm like, oh, this is going to go swimmingly. But it did. It worked out really good. I mean, we've been doing it a long time. We've gone from adding partners to back down to a 2-man. We started 2-man. We've gone up to as many as 8 lawyers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've had a, and honestly, it's been the way it should have worked out. It's been perfect. Really. I wouldn't change it.
So tell me about, all right. So you got together your small operation, you're trying to build it. And so what's the plan then? You're like, how am I going to build a brand awareness for what we're doing? And
I didn't know anything. I literally didn't know anything other than it was weird. And this is going to, but in the business that I am in, a lot of lawyers, when they're successful in the injury world, they can select cases they want, the perfect case. They don't have to take cases that have a lot of problems with them. And so just by happenstance, we needed cases, man. So if someone called me and said, hey, I've got this case, I don't want to do it. Here's the facts.
Right.
I'd say, bring it on.
You had to use the fax machine.
And yes, exactly. We paid all the money for it.
It was a huge investment.
That was our biggest expense. So I had some success early on with some cases. I think that's what started a little bit of chatter around town about, that these guys are they're good at what they do. They're turning bad cases into recoveries, and it just kind of has been that way.
Yeah.
Really, that's kind of how it happened.
I thought it was really just built around handing out koozies.
Well, we do that. Yeah. So that our marketing is literally limited to 2 things. And it's so by happenstance that this occurred, and I think in hindsight, it's crazy. That you can't turn on the TV now without seeing a Morgan & Morgan, Newland, everyone.
Sure.
I mean, and way back when it used to be the Yellow Pages was the deal.
Yeah.
Lawyers spent thousands of dollars getting double pages. And one day we had a little tiny ad. It was probably an eighth of a page. And they came to renew our thing. And we said, we're not going to do it. It's too much money. We're not paying whatever it was, $300 a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it went up every year.
Right. Yeah.
And the rep from the Yellow Pages said, you're crazy. You're not going to get any cases. And I'm like, well, we're going to find out because we're not doing it. We're not going to go back into the Yellow Pages.
Right.
So instead of doing that, we started trying to leverage just meeting people, literally. I mean, whether it's going to a bar or restaurant, meeting service people, we started doing a lot of sponsorships, what we could, little league sponsorship,
right.
Before it really exploded. And we still do a lot of that grassroots stuff. I'd rather spend, $50,000 on little league banners all around the county than
no doubt.
than a couple of TV ads. And
right.
that it's worked because from that day forward, a lot of law firms that were in the TV market, they can't spend with Morgan. They just can't spend. There's saturation levels. So what happened was they're trying to spend and keep up with the Joneses. They're spending too much on their advertising. They're not getting a return. And meanwhile, we were lucky enough, it was by happenstance, literally, because we were too cheap to pay for the Yellow Page. But we're under the radar. We're getting cases organically, mostly lawyers and people that know us.
You think about how much money Dan Newland must pay Golden Earring for the rights to Twilight Zone. I mean, it's astounding. Don't you think it's weird that he uses Twilight Zone as his like?
So those, all of those, they spend so much money, and they are so. I look at it, and this is no offense, Dan, but I look at your commercials, and I'm thinking, I can tell that guy's never been in a courtroom. He's good at telling you he's out.
He's a celebrity. He's an Orlando celebrity.
But people select. Select their lawyers like that. Clearly, those guys are doing great. I love what we do because I don't need 50 staff members to answer the phone and to stream, through cases.
So from what I'm hearing from you, it's very similar. I can relate to it, right? So like I've paid all sorts of money on lead generation and real estate and this and that and the other, and you can throw all this money out at it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's about connecting with your community. 100%. It's about connecting with the people that you know.
100%.
Who do you know that's buying or selling real estate? How can I help them? Yeah. And it's about playing the long game. It's not about chasing the check in the short term and doing what you think can generate this for the next month. It's how are you going to be relevant in the community for a long period of time because you're producing for your client and doing what's right for them.
I think it's sustainability. That's what it is, because what a lot of the firms that compete with us learned is that they didn't have those. Even some of them were local folks that I grew up with, but they never invested in anything other than TV or radio because they thought that's the way you had to go.
Right.
And when all of a sudden these big gorillas come in the room and they're 10 times your air wave, then you're not going to get the same hits and leads.
There's no loyalty in the advertising game, right?
Exactly.
It's about who's paying the most.
Exactly right. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times, there's a segment of people that always will select whatever profession they need, a realtor, a lawyer, they will select based on the good word of someone they trust over anything else, because they feel like it's a big deal for them.
Yeah.
Right. Buying or selling a house is a giant deal for people.
It's the biggest purchase that they're going to make.
And in my line of work, their case oftentimes is the biggest thing that's happening to them. They're out of work or whatever it might be. And so I don't think that Morgan has ever figured, or Newland have ever figured out a way to close that gap. They basically say, we're just going to keep trying to pick people off, but there's going to be a segment that always go to find their lawyer or realtor or whoever it is they need by word of mouth.
Well, Morgan's so big now. I was in Nashville a few months ago.
Yeah.
Morgan's got a building in Nashville. I was like, what the heck? No. He just started as a little Orlando attorney, right?
Yeah. He worked, oddly enough, for the Yellow Pages.
Did he really?
That's what he did. Yeah, he did. Out of college. He went to University of Florida.
Yeah.
And he worked for the Yellow Pages, and he saw how the marketing thing worked.
It's incredible.
And at that time, it was totally pictured as unethical for lawyers to chase cases on TV and radio.
Right.
It was uncouth.
Yeah.
It was unprofessional. Lawyers shunned they're like, no way, we don't do that. It's all word of mouth and reputation.
Right.
And then he started getting cases and started taking cases from people. And people are like, well, maybe we should rethink this, and compete with him. But he, he's done a hell of a job. There's no doubt on the marketing side.
Well, if I was talking to anyone else, I would be like, I think we need to stop talking about these guys that could sue me. Yeah. But I trust that you can represent me in case.
We'll have a defense.
I don't think we're doing anything wrong. We're just kind of talking about marketing and in your space. And they're both very, very good people. From what I understand, I have no idea. Well, actually, I did have a friend in Orlando, and her dad, John Morgan, was like one of his best friends.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about him at all.
Do you know him?
So I have met him a number of times. Oddly enough, I am really close friends and was with one of his former partners. It was Morgan, Colling, and Gilbert.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they split.
Yeah.
And that's when he became Morgan & Morgan. Those guys left to start their own venture.
Now that you said that, I remember that name on commercials from probably the 90s maybe?
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And so I was friends with Stuart Colling, who unfortunately has passed since then. I'm good friends with Stuart's brother, Jay, who's still around. and Melvin Wright, who is Morgan, Colin, Gilbert, and Wright. So, and Ron Gilbert. I know him a little bit, but I know those other guys more. And they're good people, really good people.
So we started this whole conversation about how, our families kind of found Brevard County, how we came to be part of the community at an early age. I just kind of wanted to talk because Bruce, and I don't mean to I know this is going to come across like I'm kind of, whatever, being a little, I want to say brown nose, but that's not the right word. Like kissing your butt or whatever. But Bruce is one of my favorite people on the planet. If I run into Bruce, it's like, there's Bruce. Like we end up we have good, engaging discussions. Yeah,
likewise,
right?
and we always do. And I'll tell you, I enjoy that. I
do too,
and I love that about your brother. When I see your brother, I mean, you guys are both very what I would call curious people. And I think that's a compliment. That means not curious like, wow, you're weird people. Like you're curious about things. No, but you're interested in things and knowing real answers and discovering things and listening to argument. I mean, that's a dead trait for people nowadays.
Oh no! Like if someone disagrees, it's like, I'm shutting them out.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
That is. You know how boring life would be if we all agreed on everything?
Yeah, 100%.
It's so boring.
And I love to hear dissent about one of my positions because maybe that's the law, the law side of me. I don't know, but then they do train you in law school, man. They throw topics to you and they say, now argue this side of it,
right?
Argue that side of it. So you really can't fall in love with any side. You have to be passionate and be able to argue any side, which probably warps you a little bit, But no, I feel the same about you, honestly. I mean, I'm not just saying that because you gave me a compliment. I feel the same way. I love when we run into each other, and it's not all the time, but when we do, there's always going to be something interesting to talk about. What's new? What's going on? A debate about something potentially, even sometimes a heated debate. I mean, not like we're going to fight, but passionate. Really passionate. So, no, I feel the same way.
But what's cool about it is like I view you that way in a town that I absolutely adore. So like when I'm saying you're the best of us, like I mean that. Like this town, talk to me about this town. Like what does this town mean to you? And we talked a little bit about it early, but like just talk to me about Brevard County, Melbourne, Beachside, whatever it is.
I want to say it's the greatest place in the world because I really believe that. I feel it. Now, the comeback to me was, well, you've never lived anywhere else. but I do feel like, there's just this constant force of good. I don't even know what it is, but it's almost like people keep you in check. Like there's, we're big enough that there's amazing qualities about this town. Like there's enough to do. It's a fun town. But it's also small enough that, that you oftentimes, if you get out of your lane, someone's going to tell you're out of your lane, I guess. It's kind of like the Old West where you get, someone would challenge you to a shootout or something. I don't know if that, but I mean, in a good way, it keeps you in line. People know each other. People, it's almost like there's a constant, pressure in a good way to do good and do right.
Right. It's funny. You're so right because, and a lot of us are, our families and our friendships go back 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Truly, I have friends that I met on the monkey bars 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I can't even fathom it.
I to this day literally find out an example. Nicole Warden, who lives in town. I went to high school with Nicole. Her name was Devonzo. So I've known her a long time. She ran into my father maybe a week ago. It might have been at Gene McCarthy's funeral, actually. It may have been there. And my dad was telling her that how much he loved her dad. I didn't even know they knew each other.
Right.
I had no idea. I mean, and Nicole didn't know it. She's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I went to high school with your dad and told her all these stories. I mean, I just love it. I love the roots, man. It's I can't imagine just picking up and going to a place where you never knew anybody and trying and just starting over or living somewhere else. Honestly, that never crossed my mind.
It's like ingrained in our DNA,
and for the good or bad. Better or
good,
worse,
bad or ugly. It's so funny. It's like we're a lot like sea turtles. Like we're just like
we come home.
we go away and we all end up coming back.
What's interesting is in my kid. Who knows how it's going to work out? But I have 4 children, and my second son, I really think doesn't have that. Like he's a kind of a big city person.
Right.
I think that's where he wants to be. He's more comfortable.
Sure.
That's where he wants to grow grow his life and
until he meets his girl, and starts his family, and
comes back
right back.
Yeah. You know, the other ones I can all see coming back. The other three, I don't know about Evan, but no, it's a great town, man. I wouldn't change anything about it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, I could sit here and do this with you all day, but this would be a lot more difficult for Alex to edit. So I'm going to call it. Bruce, I really appreciate you coming in.
I enjoy
being part of this. It doesn't matter if it's being filmed or recorded or whatever. I just love talking with you and hanging out with you. And I really appreciate you, volunteering and coming in and meeting with me today. It means a lot to me.
Have me back sometime. I'd love to be back.
Yeah, well, we could probably do this again. There's plenty of content here.
There's no doubt. No doubt. I appreciate you having me too, Terry.
Definitely. Hey, well, guys, hope you enjoyed that installment and getting to know Bruce a little bit better. It's always fun to hang out with him. But we will see you on our next installment of What Up Brevard.